Hi, welcome to Simple Shifts Conversations to Fuel the Body, Mind, and Soul. I'm Martha McKinnon from the blog Simple Nourished Living, and with me is my brother and partner, Peter Morrison.
Hi there.
Hello, hello.
I was going to be sarcastic and say I'm not really with you, but
It
I'm
seems like we're
here.
together.
It does kind of, sort of. We're right next to each other
We are. The
on
power
the
of technology
right.
to bring us from hours and time zones apart right into the same space side by side.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta like that. So today we're going to be talking about eating well and managing your weight on a budget because everything's getting pricier and pricier and pricier. Have you noticed?
Yes, I have.
But before we dive into that, what are you happy about?
Um, well, this is podcast number 34, and recently I did something a little unusual. I played in a pickleball tournament. That's not unusual, but I played singles and doubles and came in second in both events. So
Con- Congratulations.
thank you, thank you.
That's a great accomplishment.
It is,
So,
and I try to keep it in perspective because I did wanna win. It's hard when you make it to the final match and you're playing for first and you can't quite get over the hump, but, it is what it is. You gotta take the wins with the losses and keep moving forward, so
so how do you, how do you, because you don't have a lot of tournament play experience right at this level. So it
Mm.
really is, in my mind, it's sort of like how you choose to see it, right? Or think about it, because I think from my perspective, coming in second, in tournament play when you don't have a lot of tournament play experience seems like a huge, huge accomplishment where our personal tendency is to diminish all that we accomplished because we didn't hit the top rung. So it,
Mhm.
it really is about how you tend to see it or perceive it. I think.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, yeah. And I guess I'm a work in progress in that regard, so
But I think we all are. I think our tendency is to be overly hard on ourselves and to notice the flaws and not notice all of the, accomplishments, to focus on our weaknesses and minimize our strengths. And I think that just ties into so well with what we're talking about and trying to support people around here because
Mhm.
all of this transfers, all of these feelings and interpretations and uh,
Mhm.
transfer into what we're talking here in terms of our health, our weight.
Right, because at the end of the tournament, I'm like, well, if I did that differently, or if I made that shot, or did this or did that, it could have changed the outcome. But
Well, I think it's just I don't know. I think that we just need to learn to spin and pivot to the positive as much as we can.
mm,
I think our
mm,
lives get so much better when we can pivot to the positive, focus on what all we did accomplish. Of course, you want to consider. I think any top athlete is going to or team is going to revisit the past performance to look for ways to improve. I think that's part of
mhm,
the journey when
mhm,
we can look back. But we always want to be trying to frame it from that positive perspective to say, well, what can we learn from this? Um, Without sort of undermining all that we accomplished. And I think that
right,
that's an
right, right,
ongoing,
right.
yeah. So congratulations.
Well, thank you, and there'll hopefully be many more
Yes.
opportunities to keep keep trying and keep improving. So,
Good, good,
because
good
I
for
think
you.
for me, that's what it is about, is just improving, and because there really is no end objective. I mean, Yes, there is professional pickleball, but I mean, I'm way too old for that, and so it's really is just a personal journey at this point of, um, whatever it is for whatever purpose it's serving for me, so
Yeah, well, I think again at this age and stage of my life, I feel as though self imp being happy with where you are, but also
mm,
looking for ways to improve, to continue to learn, to continue to grow, I think are just so incredibly important, again, 'cause my goals, I think, are shifting in terms of overall well-being and wanting to just maintain a real vital life and just I talk about growing old gracefully and vibrantly, and I think that what you're engaging in is critical to that journey, to be finding ways to be out there,
mm,
because I think our world can become smaller. We do without working on ourselves. We will become mentally weaker. We will become physically weaker. It's just part of aging. And so I think we have to find ways to stay engaged and to work against those natural tendencies so that we can have a vibrant life for as long as we can.
mm.
So good for you. You're doing the work
Thank you, thank you.
in a way that you enjoy, which I think
Yes,
there's a lot to be
yeah,
said for that. I think
yep,
that's the other thing
most
too is like how can I like find joy every day and how can I find ways to really um make what I'm doing because there are always ways to find something that you like doing so that it becomes more fun and less effort. So, eating well on a budget. I have a long time I have several readers who have been with me for years, and I feel like we almost become pen pals because they'll often hit respond to the daily emails I send out, and they'll ask questions or they'll share comments. They'll talk about recipes they've made. And Betty from Canada is one of those readers, and she is in Canada. She's living on a fixed income. And she sent a question just asking that prices in Canada have going up, particularly meat is getting very expensive. And she just was looking for some guidance, suggestion for recipes that would allow her nutrition recipes that would be less meat focused, that would be healthy, that would work better on a budget. And so I thought that would be something that could be beneficial for everyone because the prices are on the rise. All groceries, in my mind, seem to be getting more expensive. And so I thought if we just shared some ideas for maybe recipes we have on the site, things we like to make, ideas around how to eat well on a budget could be beneficial to Betty and to other readers and listeners.
Do you this is kinda related, but do you know, are there Trader Joe's in, Canada?
I do not know. I think my guess is no, but it's something I would have to double check on. But I think Aldi, maybe Aldi.
Maybe
I feel like
Aldi?
I don't know for certain. So that's something we can double check. Um, and I don't know Aldi for sure, but I feel like Trader Joe started in the States, and I'm not sure they've gone beyond the States. Where
Thanks.
Aldi, I think Aldi started in Germany, and I think it has a presence, a more global presence. So
Because I've just found recently, because I do a lot of the grocery shopping here for us, and
mhm.
I noticed, when I go to Albertsons or Sprouts, I often spend 50, 60, $70 and come out with like one bag, and um I made the conscious decision, well, to go to Trader Joe's one day, or there also is a Walmart supermarket. It's not as convenient, but I went to Trader Joe's and I feel like I got several meals for probably half of what would have spent at Sprouts or Albertsons. And it just, I don't know, it just made me think how or where you shop could be a big help in these times of financial uncertainty too. So
Yeah, financial
that was
uncertainty,
just
raising prices. So, yeah, so where you shop, you gotta give that's a good, point. You've gotta consider where you shop and do price comparisons to figure out where you can get the biggest bang for your buck.
Mhm,
Another kinda universal concept is to shop with what's in season, especially around,
mhm,
your produce, that there are certain times of year where, it's gonna be really, really expensive to eat berries, right? And then other times of year will become very, very, inexpensive. So you gotta kinda pay
mhm,
attention to what's in season. And so often at Sprouts, I think you can do very well with the produce focus for what's in season, or other places like that. So that's another pointer and tip. I Another a source of uh, inspiration can often come from people who lived, there are cookbooks that were written for during the Depression, cookbooks that were written during World War II, where we were, um, much of the world experienced rationing. So those can be good sources of recipes that are just more budget friendly, less expensive. Another tip when it comes to meat, I think, is to just think of meat more as a flavoring, as a garnish. Think about ways to take meat and stretch it, as opposed to thinking about it being sort of the center focus of the plate. So that if you start to think in terms of, soups and stews and skillets and casseroles and stir fries, you can take, maybe just a little bit of meat, in a dish like that, and sort of stretch it with all your vegetables, with beans, with other ingredients. And so I think meal stretching. One thing I like to do sometimes is, when I'm
mhm,
making a meat sauce, is I'll take mushrooms and I'll chop them up very finely, so that I can use maybe just a quarter of a pound or a third of a pound of ground meat of some sort, and then the rest, mushrooms chopped up really finely, and you mix that all together. And mushrooms have a meatiness to them in a dish like that that can be very satisfying. So that's an idea. And of course, the legumes, um, your beans, your lentils, your peas, chickpeas, pinto beans, those can all be wonderful sources of fiber and protein and nutrition. And if you mix those, rice and beans, cauliflower, rice and beans, pasta and beans, pasta and peas, bulked up with other vegetables, can be very satisfying, very nutritious meals. Again, we grew up, our Nana was a product of the Depression. She was a teenager during the Depression, and she grew up on the coast of Maine. And so I guess I learned quite a bit from watching her too. And she often ate like the small canned fish, like sardines, and those may be an acquired taste, but they can be a great source of protein. Canned salmon, canned tuna can be, a more affordable,
mm.
source, because you're typically, turning it into a salad, or using it in a soup, or making it into tuna patties or salmon patties. So, and we have a lot of those recipes. So I think within this post, we can probably have a section where we can link out to several of our recipes that would be considered economical, pantry friendly, budget friendly. So we'll do that as part of this. Baked
Yeah,
potatoes.
that makes me think I just wanna on your tinned fish, idea because one of my favorite weekday lunches is just a tuna wrap,
Hmm.
and I often use a can of tuna, which is, I don't know, is that like 3.5 ounces?
Yeah, they keep
Tuna,
getting
5
smaller and
5
smaller, but
5
yeah, 3.5 to 5, I think, probably depending on the tuna.
and I usually use those, but when I was at the store, the envelopes were on
Mhm.
sale. They were much smaller, but I got 2 for less than, like, 1 can of tuna would have been, and I looked at the weight and the serving size, and one of those envelopes of tuna was only 1 serving, so,
Mhm.
um, when I was making the tuna, I had 2 of them, but I'm like, "Well, what can I do with 1 of those?" And I used 1, but I had some garbanzo beans, chickpeas. So I
Mhm.
added those and some shredded carrot and, I like to use the yogurt-based tzatziki instead of mayonnaise when I'm making my tuna fish. So I actually
Mhm.
used one of those and put enough other bulk in the tuna salad, and it made 2 wraps. So I was just curious to see would it work as a meal because you're essentially eating half a serving, but like I said, there was enough other added to it. So it is possible to easily stretch.
Right. And the bulking up with the, garbanzo beans, or I also like white beans, like cannellini beans or white or Great
Mm,
North. Um, I think we've got a recipe on our site where it combines tuna and white beans with just a simple vinaigrette, maybe some celery, bell pepper, things like that, which I find very satisfying. And so you are getting extra fiber, protein in the beans, so you're not really losing anything, and you're stretching and you're bulking it
right.
up so that it's gonna be, I think, more, satisfying and filling. So that's a great idea. I was just gonna say potatoes, like
Mm.
baking potatoes for me can make a very satisfying meal when topped with, I love broccoli and a simple cheese sauce. I love cottage cheese, with salsa, a chili if you have it, or a can, a vegetarian chili or a can of regular chili. Trader Joe's, in fact, I like their turkey chili very much, the cans that are pretty economical, on top of a baked potato with a little sprinkle of cheese, and a little bit of salad on the side can I find to be a very economical, satisfying meal. Pasta, especially if you bulk it up with a lot of veg and maybe just a tiny bit of meat or without meat with beans. I love broccoli, and pasta with a simple, olive oil, maybe a little, granulated garlic, a little bit of butter. That can be very, satisfying meal. So there's a lot you can do, and I think we have many recipes that we can link out from as we think about it. Do you have any other ideas around eating economically?
Um, no, but I have sometimes when I've messing with leftovers and you're trying to come up with a new meal with leftovers. Sometimes I've wound up in the situation where I have more after the leftovers than I had going in because I've added so whether it's zucchini or beans or whatever I add to the dish, and it's like, oh, I was trying to get rid of these leftovers, not create more leftovers from the leftovers. So, um,
But that's exactly what we're talking about. That's the magic, I think,
yeah,
of you're
yeah,
talking about Miracle Grow, and you're talking about taking, and that's what we're wanting to accomplish, I think, in these times of, um, higher prices and
hmm
inflation. You wanna be able to take something and expand it and grow it and turn it into some another satisfying meal. So that's exactly what we're trying to do, I think, and I'm doing the same thing tonight. During the week, I made one of my favorite dishes, which was popular when we were growing up, but it's the sausage roasted in the oven, sheet pan sausage, potatoes, onions, and peppers. And
cool.
I've taken, the leftovers and added chicken broth and added kale, chopped up kale for a soup. And again, it's just this way of just expanding the leftovers and turning them into, I had a little bit of the leftovers, but now you add broth, you add kale, you could add white beans again, and now you've expanded it and created, there's probably at least, 4 to 6 servings now of what would have
hmm
been maybe 1.5 servings if I had just eaten it as it was, but now
hmm
I've again, I think I like this concept of Miracle Grow, and I've
uh-huh.
just, like, bulked it up to now provide several more meals. So I think, um, that's just what we're talking about, is finding ways to bulk up your food, and, vegetables, of course, are magical with for that. The cabbage is magical. Shredded cabbage, those bags of coleslaw mix, or shredding cabbage yourself is a great bulk, item. Zucchini, like you said, I mean, that's great for bulking up food, your dishes. Mushrooms will provide a lot of bulk and a lot of satisfaction. So there's a lot you can do to just bulk your food up and make it much, and again, you're adding lots of nourishment, you're adding lots of vitamins
Mhm.
and minerals with all that vegetable, so
I don't know if you mentioned when you were talking about potatoes, but, like, cottage cheese is
Mhm,
you could add to scrambled eggs, or, I know there's a recipe on there for, like, a pita sandwich. You just mix your favorite salsa with some cottage cheese and lettuce and whatever else,
mhm,
you might wanna toss in there.
mhm.
I
So
like to
cottage cheese.
add I like to add cottage cheese to my smoothies. I've sort of gotten away from protein powders, which I guess I never really I guess some of them are okay taste-wise, but some of them are kind of not so good, and
Mhm,
with so many sweeteners and whatnot, I've started to use more cottage cheese and yogurt, add a protein boost in smoothies, or
mhm,
I don't know, I guess you could do a cottage cheese you got, what, a cottage cheese, um, banana breakfast bowl on the website?
mhm,
Like a banana split bowl, and it's for me, when it's warm weather, you don't necessarily want a heavier meal. I like the cooler, no cook, easy, um
mhm. So cheese can be used in a multitude of ways, which makes me think of the old cottage cheese diet plate back from the '70s, which I wanna revisit and think about how to, like, resurrect it, because I think that could be very, very popular for people. But cottage cheese, yeah, it's this time of year with fruit in season, you know,
Mhm,
cottage cheese and fruit can be a very satisfying, and again, like you
mhm,
said, when the weather's warm, that can be lunch or dinner. Eggs, depending on where you are, we've had issues in the States with eggs being very pricey. They tend to go up and down. So that if you are living where eggs are affordable, they can be another wonderful source of protein. And we've got a lot of egg based. So anything as simple as scrambled eggs. I love omelets, but I love frittatas. So for the past couple of Sundays, I've just been making a big, frittata, which ends up turning into anywhere from 6 to 8 generous wedges that I then just put in the fridge, and we can just pop them out and zap them. And again, it can be a breakfast, a lunch, or a supper, depending upon what you, add to it. So that can be a wonderful, affordable, meal too. Have we exhausted our thinking caps in the
yeah, I'm
moment?
trying to think,
I mean, I love ramen too. I mean, I play with it, and I make it a little healthier than I did back in my college days, and what I love to do with ramen is just turn it into a soup. So and I tend to just use chicken broth or vegetable broth instead of the packet, which can be really salty and, kinda strong. But so I love to take ramen. I will start with broth, bubble up the broth with a package of frozen, like, stir-fry style Asian vegetables, and get that bubbling for a few minutes, and then add in the ramen. And again, you could add in some tofu, you could add in, if you had some leftover cooked protein, like if you had some leftover chicken or pork, you could chop that up real small and you wouldn't need very much. And that can make a very, very satisfying
mm,
dinner with a little bit of soy sauce. That's one of my go-tos, when I'm just the end of the day and you just want something very, very simple. Just keep a few packages of ramen, and again, if you're bulking them up, you might not think of ramen as being healthy, but if you bulk it up with the right accompaniments, it can turn into a nourishing meal. So I would love, because I'm thinking there could be a lot of guidance and advice and suggestions from anybody who happens to read this, who shares this interest in looking for ways to save money on their grocery bill. I'd love for you to share in your comments recipe links, suggestions, ideas that you use for keeping your grocery bill in check while feeding yourself, on your journey.
Excellent. Great ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you found this helpful, please like, please subscribe, or appreciate all support. And we'll see you next time.
Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.